Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Jolie Joelle Kaufman. Joelle, how you doing, ma?
I'm doing great.
All
How are
right,
you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mrs. Joelle. Firstly, I want to go to your background. You had a breast cancer at the age of 13, and you've also have 40 years experience with cancer, and you also have 25 years experience in leading successful startups today, teams
That's
in
true.
Silicon Valley, and you're also the CEO and founder of GTM Flow. Can you please
Yes. Now,
walk us through your journey, your struggles, and what actually happened during that young age, because it will be very serious during your time that time, and how you are doing currently now, ma.
so first off, I'm doing great now. And I want to be clear when I was 13, it was my mother who had breast cancer. And she had breast cancer twice when I was 13 and 15. She is now celebrating, she just celebrated her 77th birthday. So she's over 40 years of survival and thriving. And when you experience something extreme, something unexpected, unwanted, you develop certain skills, or at least I did. And those survival skills can range from things you do to protect yourself and then the way you live your life. And I believe that my experiences when I was 13 and 15 shaped why I was successful for 25 years leading Silicon Valley startups, and very much shaped my approach to my own breast cancer journey in 2023, where I was able to implement, if you will, happiness tripwires, so that inevitably, in any given day, there were multiple things that would make me smile. And when I was having treatment, there were a set of very deliberate things that would make me smile. And that burst of happiness was like a battery recharge, right? And it kept my battery charged to deal with setbacks and challenges and discomfort in a way that made them less traumatizing, less bad, and actually made my recovery faster. The interesting thing is the same thing applies to how I led teams, right? If you are continuously recharging the battery with moments of happiness, of gratitude, of appreciation, of compassion, when problems come up, and Temi, problems always come up, you have the energy and you have the perspective to look at them, understand them, and develop multiple ways to solve them and proceed.
Thank you so much, ma, Mrs. Joel. And I want to discuss more on your book. Have you written any book? Have you published any book, ma? And or are you thinking of writing another one, ma?
So I have a book coming out in January called Crushing the Cancer Curveball, a veteran's guide for the newly diagnosed. It's my second time being published. I'm a participant in an anthology about walking this path before that was also a bestseller. Crushing the Cancer Curveball is a layman's, a non medical person's guide to how to structure your life to prevent or deal with and go past cancer. It can also apply to any other unexpected challenge, usually a medical challenge, but unexpected challenge. And I'm very excited about the book. It's been endorsed by doctors at UCSF and USC and on the East Coast, but it doesn't offer anything medical. It's not going to tell you how to treat because I'm not a doctor. It's going to talk to you about how to live and how to live through it. And frankly, one out of every four people in the world will face cancer. So it seems it might be good to learn the skills of how to live through adversity because adversity is a fact of life. And when you learn how to live through adversity with these happiness tripwires, you can turn problems into opportunities. Or you can simply deal with the problems with a lot less stress.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Mrs. Joya. I really learned from that place now. And I want to go to the point of someone, maybe let me just use myself as an example, someone I know dealing with cancer. So, what do you think someone should keep in mind when someone is, supporting someone that is dealing with cancer now?
That's a great question. I think it's really important and it's really great, Temi, that you're thinking about what's the right things to do here. So let me start with they're still the same person. They still are interested in your life, in their lives. They are not all about their cancer. They probably don't want to be pitied, and they probably don't want to have to repeat themselves about what's the diagnosis, what's the prognosis, what's the treatment plan. So if you want to support them, first you can just call and say, I was thinking of you. How are you doing? If you want to do something, you can say, I would really love to do something to support you. Is there something I can do, such as provide a meal, drive you to something, come visit you, go for a walk? Or if the person you're supporting has young children or other obligations where they are a caregiver, offer to take some of that off their shoulders. For example, a woman I know went through breast cancer when her children were 7 and 9. And what she needed more than anything was for people to take her children on the weekends for play dates so that her children could have a normal life and she could rest while she was recovering from treatment. But we want to smile. And that's not to make light of the cancer, but I'd love to know what's going on in your life, Temi. I'd love to talk about something other than cancer. And if I want to talk about cancer, I'll tell you.
Thank you so much, ma. I really appreciate Mrs. Joel. And I want to go to someone that is, I want to offer emotional support, ma. Because,
Mhm.
sometimes when someone is assisting someone who is ill, it even becomes more harder, it becomes more difficult. I don't know, sometimes when you just even continue to just help the person, you realize that the situation even gets worse. So, how do you think someone can offer this emotional support to someone who is overwhelming and the person overwhelming with the person who is ill? Like, how do you think someone can give an emotional support?
Sure. So let me answer that in two pieces. The first is the vast majority of people who get cancer are going to live. The vast majority are going to live. So for them, their emotional needs are their life has been disrupted. Their life has been interrupted. They are probably uncomfortable. So again, you can say, I really hate that you're going through that. I really wish you weren't. And I'm here. Is there, if you want to talk, I can hear it all. I am here for you, and I'm here if you don't want to talk about it. Now let's go to group two. This is a smaller group, but this is the group for whom cancer is going to kill them. And they're getting sicker and sicker. And it's hard. It's hard for you who love them to see it. And they know it's hard. And they're sad. I think this is when we should celebrate life and say, I just want to tell you what you mean to me. I want to tell you the impact you've had on me. I want to tell you how much I love you. And I will savor every moment I have with you. And that is enough because you can't stop. You're not a doctor. And if it's terminal, the doctors can't do. So, how do you stay comfortable so that they're not in pain? But express your love, express your feelings. share with people. Can you imagine getting to hear what you meant to people in your life? It's a wonderful gift.
Hmm. Thank you, Mrs. Joya. I really appreciate. Thank you, ma. And I want to go to mistake. I don't know if there's any mistake, but what mistake, like if there is any mistake, ma, what mistake do you see people do when they are trying to support someone who is struggling with pain or even cancer, ma?
So I think there are three.
Okay.
The first is to share stories of somebody else who had it worse, or, I remember when, uh, unless the person's asked you for stories, don't don't tell stories. They don't want to hear about other people's pain or what have you. Number two, don't offer medical advice unless you are a doctor who's been asked for it, or you have expertise and you've been asked for it. You have to trust your medical team when you're going through cancer or something like it. And I've calculated there are 120 variations of breast cancer alone. So unless you have trained in the pathology of breast cancer and the treatment of breast cancer, you probably don't know what is right. And then the third thing, which is a lot of times patients and the people who love them want to know why you got cancer. And they spend a lot of time. Well, maybe if you had eaten like this, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's because you travel. Here's the thing, nobody knows. And anytime you try to figure out why, you're actually blaming somebody for getting sick, which doesn't really help them. And you're really trying to help yourself because you're trying to say, how can I avoid ending up sick, ending up with this disease? So let's keep it simple. Everyone should exercise. Everyone should try to eat healthy and sleep. Everyone should try to have love in their lives. And then a little bit of prayer for good luck, because a lot of this comes down to luck.
Yes, exactly. Luck is very, very important in situations like this. And I want to ask if there is any way again, because you spoke about many ways someone can, assist someone who is struggling with cancer. I don't know, do you have any other way someone can also assist or help someone who is struggling with something like that, ma?
So I have quite a long list. Um,
Okay.
I will say sometimes people have to travel for treatment. So if you are somebody who has access to um, airline loyalty or hotel loyalty, or you happen to have an extra apartment or flat near where they're being treated, it can be really helpful to say, hey, can I offer you this to make it a little easier? Because cancer, the vast majority of cancer patients will say the biggest stress is actually financial. Because even if the treatment's really successful and you tolerate it well, it's time consuming. And that time comes out of time you could be working or time you could be with your family. So, what can you do to give them back time? Could I do the grocery shopping for you? Could I come do your laundry? Could I take your kids to school? Could I check in on your parents? Could I cook for you? All of these, what you're giving them is a gift of time. I'm going to give you back some time because your time is precious. And, again, the travel, the offsetting some of the costs of treatment, such as a place to stay or a way to get there, those can be really impactful offers uh, if the person wants them, and respect them if they say no. No, I want to do this on my own. Okay, I'm here. Would it be okay if I sent you a note every week? Send them a note. One of my friends sent me via email every day a joke. Probably took him less than 10 seconds, always brought a smile to my face, and there was no obligation. I didn't have to do anything. So, number one, can you give them back time? Number two, can you offset some of the disruption and expense of this experience?
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Joel. And I want to go to the point of listening because there are some people that, you know, they used to, just have this talk, 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 talk. They are not ready to probably listen to the person who is having the treatment. I would like to ask, what's listening? What role listening really plays? How powerful listening is when someone is providing support to someone who is really sick in cancer now.
So, you want to listen, but what you're listening for is what the person you're trying to support wants and needs. So sometimes, Temi, what I want is to hear stories about your life, and I want you to talk because it entertains me. It takes me away from whatever I'm going through. And maybe sometimes I want to talk about my fears and did I live a good life? And that can be a hard thing for you to hear. But when I want to talk, just listen. Just listen. And if you're uncomfortable, you can say, I really appreciate that you're sharing this with me. Don't fix it. Don't solve it. Just be present and hear it. That's what we all want. We want to be seen and heard.
Quite not easy, but thank you so much, man. And I want to go to the offering of support. There are two things in hand. When
Temi?
someone is already taking care of a person or supporting someone who is dealing with cancer and also supporting in himself or herself, how do you think someone can balance the two of them?
Fabulous question. Really good question. So there's a practice when you fly on an airplane. They tell you if the cabin loses pressure, put on your own mask first, right? If you are not yourself able to take care of yourself, it's very hard to take care of someone else. Now, that doesn't have to be a lot of time. So let's say you're going to spend some time with somebody who's going through cancer. You might want to think about what am I going to do if they look sick? How am I going to feel? And imagine it. And then choose, oh, I want to react like this. How am I going to react if they want to talk about how angry they are that this happened to them? So you can preload, consider, and have an approach so that what happens there, you're prepared. But before you do that, make sure you've had something to eat. You take a few deep cleansing breaths, and the act of just being there for somebody, that's enough. Showing up is enough. So when you're nervous, what's it going to be like? What am I going to see? Remember, they just want to see my face. I can hold their hand. I can smile. And when I smile, you smile. And that doesn't mean I'm happy this is happening to you, because I'm not. But I'm here and I will lend you my strength. I want to tell you something else that's really important not to say. Don't tell people you'll be okay. Be strong. Just keep a positive attitude, right? These are platitudes that are giving the cancer patient work to do. And the work is please make me more comfortable by acting better, right? This is not the job. There are moments where the patient will be happy. There are moments they won't. There are moments they'll be strong. There are moments they'll be weak. That's just life. I mean, you and I have that as part of our lives. And
Wow.
so, what we really want to do is set up things that are guaranteed to bring a smile, like the joke, or like, hey, I have a story about this kid, and they did the funniest thing. Isn't that amazing? Or, Temmie, I was thinking about you today. I remember when we did blah, 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 blah. And I really appreciated doing that with you. And those are can't miss. You're not cheering me up and you're not telling me to be strong. You're saying, I'm here with you. And I'm here to be a trigger for a memory or a feeling of happiness in this moment. So for a moment, you could be happy. And if I give you that gift of a moment of happiness, it's amazing because it's like a battery charge, an electricity jolt of that moment of happiness will give you some relaxation, will give you some pleasure, and will give you some strength.
Hmm. Thank you, Mrs. Joel. I really appreciate it, ma. And I would just like to ask if there is any advice you would like to give the audience, probably people who are helping people struggling with cancer, or probably people who are even struggling with cancer. Is there any advice, ma?
So, the other advice is if you're the child of someone going through cancer,
Yeah.
it is completely normal to be concerned, is this going to happen to me? And then you often feel guilty that you're thinking about yourself while your parent or your loved one is actually dealing with the disease. So I want every one of your listeners to know that's a very normal reaction. You are not a bad person. You are simply a human who wants to live and wants to survive and thrive. Very few cancers are genetic, but we don't know what the environmental triggers are. So there is no guarantee. But here's the thing, every day there is no guarantee that we get another day. Every day is a gift.
Yeah.
And we want to embrace that gift, make the most of that gift, have gratitude that we got it, and really not spend a lot of time on things we can't control. So I've always known since I was a teenager that I had a high probability of breast cancer. I found out in my 30s that I have a gene that creates a very high probability of breast cancer. It doesn't tell you when, and it doesn't tell you for sure. So the changes I made in my life as the child and the sister of breast cancer survivors was to stay fit, exercise, manage my stress, eat well, don't smoke, drink in moderation. That's about it because there's nothing else I can do. I eat a varied diet. Um, I try to avoid processed food and chemicals, but that's the best I can do. And I consider myself lucky that I have the gene because every medical professional I knew was on the lookout for my cancer. So when we found it, Temmie, it was 9 millimeters. It was 9 millimeters.
Wow.
It was early, it was small, and it was right, and it was responsive to chemo, which is great. So if your family member has cancer and you're worried about what it means for you, that's normal. It's a reason to stay healthy for your life and tell your doctors, I have a family history of this cancer so that I can be screened if any screening exists. Because the answer with cancer today is we don't know what starts it and we don't know how you can avoid it. But if you can find it early, we can obliterate it.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Mrs. Joel. I really learned a lot there. That was really, really huge. People learn a lot from there. There's a question I normally ask now from the ancestors, from the forefathers. If there is anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing
Mm.
will be?
Wow, that's a great question. So I always like the teachings of Hillel:
Okay.
do unto others, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right?
Okay.
So if you can imagine what you might want if you were facing a challenge
Yes.
from the people who love you,
Yes.
well, there's a high chance that might be what someone else wants.
Mm.
So do unto others before you do unto yourself.
Mm.
I like that. The other one is a belief to see the presence of God
Mm.
in each person, no matter how weak or how irritating or how angry or how funny. We're all created in the image of God, and the presence of God is in each of us.
Mm. Hmm. Thank you, Mrs. Joya. And the way you were talking from the beginning, my apologies. You was talking like a professor, someone that is like really into I know you've been there for 40 years old. You're like, are you a professor?
I have taught, but I'm not a professor. I'm a parent. I've
Okay.
been a leader of, thousands of people.
Okay.
And I believe that for me, the most effective way to parent and to lead is to coach,
Okay.
to share wisdom, but also leave people with something to think about, something they can take and use, not just right now, but hopefully throughout their lives. That's why I wrote my book. That's why I'm talking with you. I want to change how people see these challenges and obstacles. I want to make them less terrorizing. I want to give people confidence with compassion. It's not fun, but it is part of life. And there is a way through it. I'll give you this, Timmy. It surprises me, but 2023, and I was diagnosed on January 9th, 2023 became one of the happiest years of my life. I have never felt more loved. I have never felt more supported. I have never felt more connected. And frankly, I have never felt stronger than when I, with my partners in the medical profession, took on this particular disease. And, there's a woman I interview in the book, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, which is, not, you can't obliterate it. And her cancer's been responsive to treatment. The disease isn't progressing, which is great. But she was young when she was diagnosed. She was 37. But she says to me, and this is a lesson for us all: cancer woke me up. I was just going through my life. And when I learned I had stage 4 cancer, I made choices about what I want to do with however much time I have left.
Yes.
So she decided to take her 3 children and ensure that she, with the 3 of them, visits every one of the 50 United States.
Mm.
And that may take years, and they drive and they camp, they do things to do it at a reasonable price. But her drive is to
Mm.
experience all that life has to offer. And before she was diagnosed, she wasn't living that way.
Okay.
Now, don't wait for cancer, just live that way. Squeeze everything out of life because it's a gift.
Okay.
But when cancer or some other obstacle
Okay.
is in your path, it's just an obstacle in your path.
Okay.
And you can, through the support of those who love you, through your own strength, through happiness, you can face any obstacle.
Okay. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything. Thank you for those powerful thoughts. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Have a wonderful day,
Thank
man.
you. You too. Take care.